Vision is an international Christian humanitarian organization, and we work to give every child life in all its fullness, not just for the child, but also his family and community. So we work in close to 100 countries around the world, and we seek to fight poverty and injustice. We seek to help the most vulnerable people regardless of religion, race, gender and ethnicity. That's World Vision International, and World Vision Malaysia is part of that partnership. And we've been in Malaysia for 10 years, and we are a fundraising and awareness building organization here in Malaysia. The projects that we do are child sponsorship. People can sponsor a child for 50 ringgit a month, and that money will go to develop the child's community, meaning we bring things like education, healthcare, clean water, economic development. We always want to look at helping the child and his community as a whole. Youth are actually involved in our work at every level. For example, our staff, half of our staff are under 30 years old. Yeah, we have student interns. They come in regularly. It's part of their course, and they help out in like finance, event management, marketing, donor relations. This is part of their course requirement, but they also learn what it's like to work in an international NGO. Yeah, we also have about 1,000 volunteers, and they help us in our office work and event management. Also, child sponsorship, I was talking about, 30% of our child sponsors are actually under the age of 30. So that means that they are young people such as college students or youth fellowships who have committed to sponsoring children. And at a global level, we engage youth to partner us in advocacy and fighting poverty and injustice. One is a local story and one is in another part of the world. So the first story is about Serena. She's a Malaysian child sponsor and she sponsors 3 children. She's not very rich, and she's a youth, but she's sponsoring 3 children. And as a child sponsor, she visited our projects in China, Mongolia and Thailand. Yeah, when she came back from the projects, she was totally transformed. She told us that, over here, it's so easy to take things for granted because we have so much. But in a poor country, people have so little and yet they are happy. So she came back with this sense of gratitude for the things that she has, and also she wants to do something to help the poor, in particular the children. So she started blogging about it, she signed up as a volunteer, she's been interviewed on radio, she's a spokesperson, and she's organizing events. Yeah, so she's really taken our vision and she's running with it. Yeah, the other story is Fatmira from Kosovo. She's 15 years old, and she's got a really powerful story. When she was really young, her sister and brother were kidnapped during the war and her house was burned down. The whole family had to run away to the mountains to hide. But in spite of this, instead of calling for revenge and violence, actually that's part of the culture. Their culture is that you have every right and it's an obligation to take revenge. So the adults started, reacting with hatred and violence. But it was the children who went to the streets and demonstrated for peace. Those children were part of a club that Fatmira started. It's called the Kids for Peace Club. And she learned about peace from a World Vision staff. And the children have learned how important it is to have peace. Yeah, so World Vision organized a conference for this peace club. And for the first time, she had to meet the Serbian children face to face. And she said she felt like her heart was being torn in two because she remembered what it was like when she lost her brother and sister. But she also knew that she's a role model for her club members. So in the end, she confronted her anger and went up to the Serbian children and greeted them and shook their hands. And she says that, God has given me the strength to forgive them. So, her story is a real encouragement to us. We believe that when we sow forgiveness in the children and in the youth, they will bloom into peace bearers. That is, at a young age, they learn to hate and learn that these people are my enemies because these are the people who kidnapped my brother and sister. I have every right to hate them. But at this young age, the World Vision staff actually taught her, when someone disagrees with you, you don't react in anger, but you listen and you respect. And out of that, those children stood up and say, let's not fight, we are tired of fighting, let's have peace instead. We need someone, to stand up and say, okay, I'm not going to take revenge even though I might see it as my right and obligation. Yeah, so I think youth and children play a very important part in this, because when they grow up, they are the ones who will say, let's go to war or let's make peace. Yeah. We love people because God first loved us. And that is the principle, the central principle from which everything comes from. But of course, we have to be very careful that we don't impose any of our values on others. So, as I said earlier, we serve everyone regardless of religion and gender and ethnicity. Yeah, but definitely that's our core value. Actually, empowerment is part of not just our work with youth, but also in poverty. The way that we work is always to teach a man to fish rather than to give him a fish. What we envision for the youth is that, they would be caring, that they would be compassionate, that they would see a world that's larger than their own, that they would truly become global citizens. And the only way that they can reach that stage is if we give them opportunities. Yeah, and so basically the reason why we do it is because we believe in the potential that youth have. I think each person needs to make that decision to live in peace with others. Yeah, just like she made the decision, it's her decision, but we have to make the decision. Are we going to forgive? Are we going to accept our differences? Are we going to respect each other? And that collective decision will, mold the direction that we're taking. Yeah, so it's important to realize that there are many consequences to the decisions that we make. And it's not a matter of just simply doing things because you feel like it or because everyone is doing it. But I think it's important for youth to consider the consequences of their actions. And, I think the older people can give them that kind of advice, the consequences that they might not be aware of.